Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Now in this video what we're going to do is we're going to focus on getting the what's called the index route and the new and create route. So that's going to basically be the ability to see our data. Actually we'll also probably do the show route here. So we should be able to see all of our to-dos, bring up a page of our individual to-dos, and be able to create a to-do. That'll be sort of what we do in this particular setup. So let's do that. So what I am going to do is we're going to first create our index route. So all of those are going to generally be in part of our main routes router. I'm not sure if we'll probably use the API routes router for this particular build because we're just going to be using EJS templating. So first we'll create our index route, which should be this. I'm going to change this to use main controller.index because I want the name of the function to match the route. So in that case, that means I need to make sure that main controller has an index function. You can find the main index, that controller definition in this controllers folder here in this main controller JavaScript function file. So what all I want to do is just create a function here. So we'll say index rec res. And what all this should do is one, get all the to-dos. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get all the to-dos. So I'm going to say, again, the model should be here like const to do equals rec.models.to do. Okay, because again, we set that up in that middleware in the previous video. Okay. Then I want to go get the to-dos. So we're going to say to do dot find. And then when I put an empty object, that means find all the to-dos, because generally it uses the object as a search criteria. So since there is no criteria, it just gets all the to-dos. And if to get more detail about how that works, watch my Mongo videos. But then what we can do is we can pass in a callback as the final argument that'll handle what happens when we actually get the to-dos back. So generally the first argument should be the error, if there is an error. And then we'll say the second thing should be what I get back, which would be the to-dos. Okay, got a drink of water. Now, basically, what I want to do is check to make sure that there's no error. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do if there's an error. So that means because if there is no error, then the error is just going to be undefined. So that object will just be empty. So I'm going to say if there's an error, then what I want to do is my response will be like res.send res.send the error object. Okay, and then I'm gonna actually want to give it an error status, so we'll say dot status of 400, so that way it's treated like an error, and there we go. Otherwise what I want to do is do a res.render. I want to render, because like basically here I'm just sending the error object, and that's just going to show up as JSON on the screen for an error. If it successfully gets the to-dos, I want to take those to-dos and render a template. I want to render a template. And the template, generally I'm going to keep my everything kind of named consistently. So if it's my index route, the controller action is going to be called index, and then the EJS file will be called index. Okay, so it will be index.ejs. And we're going to send it the to-dos. So I'm going to give it an object, and I'm going to send over the to-dos with it. Okay, cool. So there's the route. Okay, now I just have to make an index.ejs. So I'm going to head over to my views folder to make the EJS file, the template that generates the HTML. Okay, and I'm going to just copy everything from this example here, so that way you have all the already made partials in there. Okay, although, yeah, we'll keep the header. I'll get rid of the footer. I don't really care about the footer. Okay, and basically we're going to just create an H1 that says the to-dos, app. Let me take a look at the partials. Okay. come back to making a navigation a little bit later. And what I'm going to do here is in my index.ejs, we'll make a UL. And then here's where we'll loop over the to-dos using EJS. Okay, so again, this particular syntax allows me to write JavaScript in my HTML to generate HTML. So I'm going to say, hey, and the thing is that we know from my controller that I'm sending the to-dos to the template. Okay, which there really aren't any, so there won't be any that show up on the page yet. So for to-do, that should be in parentheses. So for to-do of, actually I am going to want, I'm going to use a for each loop. So to-dos dot for each. Okay, and then we're going to pass in the function that gives us each a to-do and an index. Okay, and then I need to make sure that this gets blocked off, and then wrap this in squid hats too. Does it look like little Mario squids? There we go. So essentially what this is like these are 2 lines of JavaScript, but then I can write HTML here in between this loop, and it's going to create that HTML for each loop. So in that case, what I'm going to do here is we're going to say the text will be, we're going to create an li for each to do, and inside the li, okay, will be the text. So I'm just React habits. Okay, equals, and when I put the equal sign, that means it's going to inject text in there. So I want to inject the to-do.message, because remember our schema, each to-do has 2 properties, message and completed. Okay. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we'll have a class that may or may not be there. So class equals, we'll say equals to-do, space, and then we're going to use EJS to inject completed in there. So we'll just say if to-do dot completed is true, then put in completed. Otherwise, just inject null. Okay, and then we're going to want to put we want to wrap this in a link. So we're going to make an a tag, a href equals, which is going to be slash to do slash, and then we'll put in the index here, slash equals the index there, and then we will close that link, put that a right over here. Cool. And then that's going to generate the to-dos. Okay, and then we need to actually have a button to create to-dos. That takes us to where we create to-dos. So what I'm going to do is just create a button here. Button, create to-do. And then let's make a link of that. A href equals slash to-do slash new. Okay. And close this off. Put that a tag right around over here. And then technically this page should be all set. So let's take a look. npm run dev. Let's see if this all works when I go there. So localhost 3000. Okay, and so far it looks good. Notice there's no to-dos because we haven't actually added any to-dos yet. And I have this create to-do button, and it does take me to the page. Again, I haven't actually made a route for this new page yet, so that's going to be the next thing we're going to do. Okay, so then I'm going to head back and start creating a route for the new page. So I want to create another route. So main routes dot get slash to do slash new, because that's what I set it up as, right? To do slash new, yep. And then that's going to again use the main controller, and we'll call the function new. Okay. So now I need to create that message, although we'll see if I can use new. I think I can. Okay. So then I'm going to create a new function called new recres. Okay, and essentially what we need to do here is that when it should just render a template. It should just take us to a page. So it's just going to be res.render new.ejs, and we're not going to send any data to it. So it's just that. So that's literally it. Okay, pretty straightforward. So in that case, now I need to create the file, new.ejs. So new file, new.ejs. Okay, and I'm just going to copy the contents from the previous EJS file to get started. I'll delete the stuff inside the main tag here. And then we start building. So h1 create a new to-do. All I really want here, I'm going to assume that every to-do from the get-go is not done. Like, why would you add a to-do that you've already done? So I'm not going to ask if they've completed it or not completed it. So all I really want to know is, like, what is the to-do? So we're going to have a form. It's just going to have a single text input. Text equals, type equals text. It's going to have a name. It has to equal the schema. So again, that generally would be the text would generally be the message based on our schema. And that should be good. And then we need a submit button. Input type equals submit, which will say value create new to do. Okay. Now we need something to happen when that form gets submitted. So in the form tag, I'm going to add an action property. So when the form gets submitted, that's the URL that the form gets submitted to, which is going to be slash to do, which will be a post request. So method post. Okay, now we just actually need to create the route that handles that. Okay, so I'm going to head back to my server.js. I'm going to go create that route. So that's going to be main routes dot post, which is going to be slash to do, and then that's going to take main controller dot create. It's going to be the function for that. So I'm going to head, because that's going to be our create route, the route that actually creates the thing from the data on the form. So I'll make a new route over here in my controller. So create recres, and what this route should do is at first we're going to want that model. So I'm going to create const to do equals rec.models.todo. Then what I want to do is to take the data from the request and make a new to do. The only problem is the completed property isn't there. So I'm going to say, so I'm going to make sure that I take the rec.body, which technically, the middleware should be there, or rec.body.completed is going to equal false, because it should always start out as false. And then what we're going to do is we'll use the to-do model to create the to-do. So to-do.create. And we have to pass it the to-do we're creating, which is just going to be the contents of rec.body. And then we get to do the callback, which says, like, again, there's always the error and the thing we get back, which will be the new to-do, because technically it returns you the to-do you just created. Okay, and then again, I'm going to just do that same error check, so I'll just literally copy this. Okay, so again, it's going to basically check if there's an error, so I get an status error. Otherwise, I'm going to get, it's going to render, except actually it's not going to render this time around, it's going to redirect. So we're going to redirect you back to the main page, and then you should see the new to-do. So now we should be able to create a to-do now. So if I go back to the main page, click create to do, I can be like, eat breakfast, and there it is, eat breakfast, and I can continue making to-dos. And the cool thing is that this is now in my Mongo database. So if I go back to my Mongo database and I take a look at it, so if I go over here to browse collections, see, I see like, hey, look, there's a new database called Express To-Dos, like I had in my URL. And there's a collection that matches the name of my model, To-Dos. And inside of it, there is the to-do that we just created. Okay, so that's pretty neat. And you see it matches our schema, message completed. Okay, so this is all well and good. Okay, and there's a lot of other cool stuff you can do here from the Mongo dashboard. Cool. Okay, so let's go back to, so now we still need to do like a show page. So, because right now, if I click on the individual to do, so if I go back to over here, I go back to the main page. If I click on this, cannot get to do 0. Okay. So we need to go change that. So we're gonna go back and make another route. Main routes dot get slash to do, and then the idea is that we want to then use the number of like the ID number, so ID, and that's going to end up using main controller dot this is called the show route, so it'll be dot show. Okay, so that'll be the route there. So now I head back to my main controller, and we're going to add another function called show. And again, rec res. And essentially, when we want to show an individual one, what we want to do is go get that individual to do. So first we need to grab the ID. So we're going to say const ID equals rec.params.id, because that we had that param in our route ID. So the idea is that the ID of that to do is going to be in the URL. Okay. And I just realized something we need to fix. If we go back to index.ejs, notice I actually put the index in the URL. I don't want the index anymore. I want the to-dos ID, because we're dealing with the database now. So really what I want is to-do._ID, because Mongo just gives things this underscore ID property. So like if I go back to Mongo for a second, you'll see there's an underscore ID property, and that's what I want to access, because that actually has the ID number of the to-do, which I need to access it. So make sure that you change that here in index.ejs, so that says underscore ID. Okay, so back to my controller here, rec.params.id. Then what I'm going to want to do is grab the model, so const to do equals rec.models.todo. Then what I want to do is go grab the to-do. So I'll say to-do.find by ID. That's a function that's built into the Mongoose model. Okay, and that's going to allow me to pass an ID, which is the ID we got from the URL, and it'll go get me that to-do. And the second argument is then the callback. So error to-do. And then again, I can just use this if statement again. So again, if there's an error, it'll handle the error. Otherwise, what I want it to do is actually render a template. So res.render. I want to render show.ejs, but I want to render it using the individual to do that we just went and fetched. Okay, so there's that route. Cool. Now next we start making the show.ejs. So new file, show.ejs. I will copy the contents of basically index.ejs. Okay, show. I don't really need the loop or the UL. So basically what's going to happen here, and this button will now become like a back button. So we'll just call this back. And this will just take us back to the main page. Okay, and then we're going to just say here to-dos. The to-dos app. What I want to do here, I want to put the name of the to-do. So we'll say equals to-do.message in the h1, and then below it we'll say if it is completed or not, h2 percentage equals to-do.completed. We'll use a ternary operator again. Completed. Not completed. Okay, and we'll leave it at that for now. So yeah, that should be working now. So if I go back here, let's go back to the main page. So I have the to-do eat breakfast. If I click on eat breakfast, it takes me to a page where I can see that eat breakfast is not completed. I can go back, I can add to-dos, I can see the list of to-dos. So if I add eat lunch, eat breakfast, or eat dinner, and there you go. Okay, so that's the deal there. That works. Okay, so we'll do the remaining routes in the next video. So I'll see you guys there.